Khabib Nurmagomedov did retire. Dana mentioned he doesn't believe that Khabib is officially retired, which is kind of shocking because when you hear it straight from the horse's mouth, you tend to believe it. But Dana is under a different impression, and he believes that he will honor that Khabib will honor his father's wishes to retire at 30-0. He currently stands at 29-0. Dana made clear the lightweight title is not vacant, and he will not vacate the title until he knows absolutely 100% unequivocally that Khabib will not be returning. It begs the question, if you're in the lightweight division, what is going through your mind? I mean, what should they be expecting, or even, I guess to say, what should they be fighting for, right?
Yeah, I think that what Dana said, it it kind of makes some sense. And as much as we want to believe Khabib and think that he's going to keep his word, I think at the end of the day he's going to honor what his father wanted for him to retire 30-0. And I agree with Dana. And we don't know when he's going to fight next. If he's going to fight next, it's most likely going to be a while. But I think where the UFC and where Dana lucks out is that the lightweight division is kind of up in the air. There's nobody next in line to fight for the title. The next in line for the title is whoever wins that Poirier McGregor fight. So once that fight is over in January, now we're looking at probably a September, October, or end of or even further towards the end of the year, having the title fight then. So Khabib has 14 months or so to figure it out whether he wants to fight or not. There's plenty of time. I think that I don't think there's anybody else that's available. Gaethje's not going to get another shot. Dan Hooker lost to Poirier, so he's obviously not in line. There's just
Tony Ferguson.
yeah, Tony Ferguson lost to Gaethje, and I mean, well, I don't think Tony Ferguson would get the honor of fighting Khabib in his last fight when we just saw what happened to Justin Gaethje, and we saw what Justin Gaethje did to Tony Ferguson. So,
Right.
as much as we've been waiting to see Ferguson and Khabib, it's never going to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to make an idea, um, if I'm Dana, right now these guys are, like you said, they're getting in position to fight for that title. So with this McGregor Poirier fight, uh, the winner of that would probably be next in line for that title. If it's not Khabib, right? If he is truly done, I would have to assume that the winner of the McGregor Poirier fight has to fight Justin Gaethje. I think that has to be the next fight that happens, because as much as we want to return on the assumption that Khabib is going to be coming back and he's going to be fulfilling his father's wishes of 30-0, or that dream, the fact remains he promised his mom he wasn't coming back, and there has to be some sort of secondary plan in case that does not happen. And like I said, if Dana White doesn't vacate the title, if he does not allow for the UFC, these fighters to compete for a title, they at least have to get into some sort of pecking order in which they should be able to fight for a title, whether it's Khabib or it's a vacated title, and then move on from there. I think right now it's just one jumbled mess where, again, you had Tony Ferguson, who just lost to Justin Gaethje. Gaethje lost to Khabib. McGregor and Poirier are fighting in January. Whatever happens there will be, it would have to be in line for Justin Gaethje, and then Ferguson, I assume, would have to fight Poirier or McGregor, whoever loses that one, and then that would be your 1 through 4 after all those fights are considered.
Yeah, I would agree that it has to be Gaethje would get, if the title were vacant, it would be Gaethje versus whoever wins this Poirier McGregor fight. I think that's without a doubt. What Dana will end up doing, even if Khabib says, I'm not sure, even in, say, September, October of 2021, he's still not sure. That's where an interim championship comes into play. That's when you're gonna have somebody fight for that, and that'll be your clear cut number one contender until the actual title, is available. And as much as I hate interim championships, this is one instance where it actually makes sense. And I think that with the way Dana is talking, it'll be very difficult for him to strip Khabib of the title at any point. I think he's going to try to hold on to the fact that Khabib's father wanted him to fight one more fight, and it's going to happen. He firmly believes that, and I don't think his mind is going to change in the next year. And
I think that there has to be, if you're McGregor, Poirier, Gaethje, Ferguson, whoever, you have to have a conversation with Dana and basically say, listen, there needs to be a firm date for him to make that final call, because you can't wait for 2 years before this decision is made. This needs to be made in a year to 14 to 15 months max. I mean, that has to be the time frame in which you are looking for, because these guys, this is what they do for a living. And if you're continuously trying to recycle an interim champion because your feeling is that somebody's going to come out of retirement and you want to preserve their right to be champion, I can't imagine that doesn't have an expiration date. That there has to, especially not just for these fighters, but for the viewing audience, for the fans of the sport. We have to be able to understand that there's an actual champion going to be crowned at some point in time. We can't just hold on to the glory days of when Khabib was fighting. At that point, just retire the entire division with him, because at that point, there's nothing to fight for.
Another thing to consider is Khabib's, even if he fights again, right? He fights one more fight.
Right.
He's not going to fight Dustin Poirier. He's not going to want to. He already beat him. So why fight him again?
He's beaten almost everybody.
He doesn't want to fight McGregor. We all know that. There's nothing to prove there. And he just beat Gaethje. So those are your top three fighters. So we all know he wants to fight George St. Pierre. He's been vocal about that, and
George St. Pierre
GSP has said that he doesn't want to fight. And even if that fight occurred, it would probably occur either at a catchweight or at 160, at 170. So I don't think that that fight wouldn't be for the title anyway. So why not strip him? Maybe what needs to happen is, if Dana's not going to strip him, Khabib just releases it, just like John Jones did. Says, I don't need the title. I don't know if I'm going to fight again. And if I do, it's only going to be against this guy, and it's going to be at this weight. So there's no reason for me to hold on to this title. I'm not going to defend it again. So why should I have it?
Right. Yeah, again, it's one of those situations where, again, Khabib has beaten everybody up until this point. And we're at a situation where the people he hasn't beaten aren't in line to face him. So where do we go from here? And again, I think if he doesn't release it himself, Dana White has to have an idea, basically a drop dead date of, okay, if he's not back by this point in time, we have to release the championship and have that pecking order ready to go. Because at this point, not for anything, as great as these fighters are, if they're not fighting for a real championship, it's going to hurt the brand. It is, because it's much easier to sell a championship fight than it is to sell, just names to headline a fight. And, we talk about it all the time. If there's not a championship involved, they can't be, or most likely can't be, the main event on a pay-per-view. And these are names that would headline a pay-per-view for sure.
I don't see Dana ever stripping the best pound for pound fighter. He loves him too much to do that. He'd rather everybody fight for an interim championship than strip a guy like Khabib. That's
But
just
that's
how
what I'm saying.
how he
He
works.
has to, but he has to strip
Even
him
even
in
if
12 to 15 months.
even if it was a year and a half, he probably wouldn't strip him. I would be surprised if he did.
I just think as a business standpoint, you have to, because then what are these guys fighting for? They fight to be the best, and you're not the best until you hold that belt. And that if that belt isn't on the table, again, I beg the question: what are you fighting for? It's
I
that
mean,
simple.
I know it's tough because we all feel just like Justin Gaethje does. An interim championship means absolutely nothing. Throw it on the ground. It's
Yeah.
garbage. It's a piece of metal, as some likes to say. Um, it's
Thank you, Rob Manfred.
it's a tough situation, and Dana's got to get out of his own way at some point. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
gonna happen. I wouldn't expect it.
for sure. There's a lot of questions. We can speculate all day, but there is one thing that happened in this division that we'll be excited about. It seems like Nate Diaz called out Dan Hooker in a tweet and said, let's go. Hooker accepted. Now the question is, are they going to fight at 155 or are they fighting at 170? And on top of that, what does this look like? What are we expecting from this fight here?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, this is an interesting fight. I would be surprised if this fight took place at 55. I would expect this to be a welterweight bout, and I think that would be. I think that's a good spot for Dan Hooker. I think that he would be better suited if he moved up a weight class, put on some pounds. He could really do some damage, and I think that is better competition for him. I don't know if Dan Hooker, he's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to downplay his abilities at all. But I don't know if he can stand in there with a guy like Justin Gaethje. I mean, he lost to Poirier, and to me, Poirier isn't on Gaethje's level. So what is he going to be able to get past Gaethje at any point? I mean, I don't see that happening. I think Dan Hooker would have more success if he moved up to 170. And this is a perfect opponent. Nate Diaz, he wants to fight. The fight was extended to Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker was like, yeah, just give me a weight class and let's fight. So this fight's gonna happen. We just need the details to get worked out. We need the contracts to get signed. This will be an interesting one, and this will be a good sign if Dan Hooker is able to do well against Nate Diaz, and I think he could have a good shot in this fight. Then this might be an eye-opening experience for him to say maybe it's time to leave the lightweight division and move to welterweight.